Burial locations are vital to a community. They reflect a community's culture and values, and they serve as a timeline to a community's past. By walking through a cemetery, graveyard, or churchyard, you can see headstones that indicate a specific person's birth, death, and marital status, but also, if you look at the location as a whole, you can see patterns that can reflect diseases, wars, or mass casualty events that occurred within a community. In the history of America, death was a way of life. Prior to the late 1700s, the word cemetery was not used in relation to a burial location, with the terms churchyard, graveyard, and burial grounds being used instead. Additionally, elaborate headstones were not commonly used unless a family was extremely wealthy, with a simple marker made of wood or stone being typically used to identify a burial site. As America entered the 1800s, there was a shift in thinking with regard to death and the afterlife. Death was still to be a sorrowful occasion, but in a move away from the Puritan concept of finality, death was now seen as a transition to heaven, and as such the remembrance of the deceased was accompanied by joy and celebration. The evolution to this new way of thinking and remembering gave rise to a new type of burial location that embraced nature and beauty. The word cemetery, which is derived from the Greek word meaning sleeping place, became used for burial locations away from churches and city centers that would be pre-planned, neatly arranged, and neatly manicured. Plots would be pre-sold to families in anticipation of future burial needs. Also during this time, as more materials such as marble and granite became available thanks to the railroad system, headstones became more elaborate and ornate, and they began to reflect the life of the person buried beneath, such as occupation, social class, religious beliefs, and life accomplishments. Cave Hill Cemetery, located in Louisville, Kentucky, is a 296-acre Victorian-era cemetery and arboretum that serves as a serene resting place and a historical landmark. Established in 1848, it was designed by civil engineer Edmund Francis Lee, who envisioned a garden-style cemetery with winding paths, hills, and lakes which would reflect the natural beauty of the land. The cemetery was chartered on land originally part of the William Johnson's Cave Hill Farm, which included a cave system and a natural spring that fed Beargrass Creek. Over the years, Cave Hill Cemetery has evolved into a significant cultural and historical site. It was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1979, recognizing its architectural and historical importance. The cemetery's landscape features 5 man-made lakes, over 500 species of trees and shrubs, and numerous monuments and memorials. Notably, the cemetery is home to the Cave Hill National Cemetery, established in 1861 for Union soldiers and later expanded to include Confederate soldiers, reflecting the area's Civil War history. From its origins in 1848 and continuing today, Cave Hill Cemetery functions as a public park and historical site, but it is also an active burial ground with over 141,000 interments and with many of its monuments and headstones created to represent the unique person or persons buried beneath. Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr. was born in Louisville in 1942. At the age of 12, when his bicycle was stolen, he decided to channel his anger over the theft and desire to defend himself into a boxing career that would span for decades. By the age of 18, just 6 short years after he started boxing, Cassius won a gold medal at the Olympic Games in Rome. By 1964, Cassius, who also became known for his social activism, decided to convert to the Nation of Islam and officially changed his name to Muhammad Ali, and in the world of boxing became one of the greatest heavyweight boxers of all time. Winning 56 of the 61 professional fights during his career, he described his boxing style as float like a butterfly and sting like a bee, indicating that he was agile enough to move quickly, but the blows that he would deliver would be powerful. Muhammad Ali retired from boxing in 1981, and in 1984 he was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Muhammad Ali died in 2016 at the age of 74, and he was interred at Cave Hill Cemetery with a headstone that reads Ali. However, at the request of his wife, Lonnie, a small beehive was hung over the grave in remembrance of her husband. When researching stories of someone who never gave up, the story of Harlan David Sanders could be one such example. Born in 1890 in Henryville, Indiana, Sanders' life before the age of 40 included jobs such as a railway worker, a lawyer, and life insurance salesman, all three of which he lost due to his propensity to fight. He founded a ferryboat company which failed, and a lamp manufacturing company that couldn't compete with the products sold by a rival company. At the age of 40, he decided to start making and selling chicken dishes in a service station in North Corbin, Kentucky, but a deadly shootout with a competitor in 1937 derailed his plans for a time. Sanders was not charged as he acted in self-defense, and 4 years later he returned to work by purchasing a hotel and opening a restaurant that he called the Sanders Cafe, which unfortunately burned to the ground. Sanders rebuilt the motel only to have World War II force him to close it down. Not to be deterred, by July of 1940, at the age of 50, Sanders had perfected a secret recipe for his chicken along with a pressure frying technique that was faster than pan frying. In 1950, Harlan Sanders was given the honorary title of Colonel by the Kentucky governor, and he used that name and Southern image in the marketing of his Kentucky Fried Chicken brand. By the age of 65, Sanders began to franchise his restaurant, in an idea which became highly successful. By the mid-1960s, KFC became the first U.S. fast food chain to expand internationally. Although Sanders sold the company in 1964 at the age of 73, he remained the face of the company, traveling over 200,000 miles a year, making appearances and filming commercials. In June of 1980, Colonel Sanders was diagnosed with leukemia, and he died 6 months later at the age of 90. His body laid in state in the Kentucky State Capitol before being moved to lay in state at the KFC headquarters in Louisville, Kentucky. He was buried in Cave Hill Cemetery on December 20, 1980, under a monument which he himself designed and had constructed before his death. While there are monuments and headstones that are elaborate and denote the celebrity status of those buried beneath, there are other monuments that are extremely poignant and are designed to depict the life story of how the person lived rather than how they died. In 1880, Reverend James Taylor Helm, an Episcopal minister, founded a charity in Louisville called the Home of the Innocents. The home was a location where children and infants, regardless of denomination, could be placed and where they would receive love and care. Although it started as a struggling charity, by 1890, 10 years after its opening, the Home of the Innocents was one of the main charities in the city, sometimes caring for over 100 children at a time. One of the first deaconesses to serve as the superintendent for the Home of the Innocents was Sister Emily Cooper, and she dedicated 25 years of her life to fundraising and caring for the children in the home. During her tenure, she oversaw the baptism of 284 infants, and she established the first kindergarten in the home to oversee the education of the older children. However, in 1904, due to poor health, Sister Emily was relieved of her duties at the Home of the Innocents, and in 1909, at the age of 72, Sister Emily passed away and she was interred at Cave Hill Cemetery. However, the city of Louisville has not forgotten this beacon of light and hope for hundreds of area children. In the early 2000s, the Home of the Innocents discovered that there were unmarked graves of 220 infants and young children who died between 1880 and 1920, buried in Cave Hill Cemetery. In 2009, a statue called Metamorphosis was erected among these graves. It depicts a bronze statue of Sister Emily Cooper shaking a blanket patterned with 220 butterflies that become three-dimensional as they ascend into the air. Each butterfly represents one of the Home of the Innocent children buried in Cave Hill Cemetery in unmarked graves, and each of their names were added to the bottom of the statue, ensuring that they will never again be nameless and forgotten, and they will always be watched over by Sister Emily Cooper. Among the many poignant and emotional monuments in Cave Hill Cemetery is that of two teenagers forever locked in a loving embrace. Erected in 2001, this monument depicts Matthew Falk and Catherine Torp, both of whom were 19 years old when they were killed together in a car accident in 2001. Romantic partners in life, they were buried next to each other in death, and both of their families came together to contribute to this sculpture that was made in their likeness. It also includes an inscription of the song Two Step by Dave Matthews Band, ensuring that this monument will forever highlight the love that two young people had for each other before their tragic and untimely deaths. Patty Smith Hill was born in 1868 in Anchorage, Kentucky, located just outside of Louisville. She became a pioneer in early childhood education, and in 1893, Patty, along with her sister Mildred, wanted to compose a tune that children could easily learn and sing in class. Mildred, a renowned musician, wrote a tune, and Patty added the lyrics to the song that they called Good Morning to All. The song lyrics went like this: Good morning to you, good morning to you, good morning dear children, good morning to all. Many theories abound as to when the lyrics morphed, but eventually they became the Happy Birthday song, which is now recognized by the Guinness Book of World Records as the most recognized song in the English language. Mildred died in 1916 at the age of 56. Patty died in 1946 at the age of 78. They are buried next to each other in Cave Hill Cemetery with markers that are modest compared to neighboring headstones. One of the most interesting and charismatic monuments in Cave Hill Cemetery is the one dedicated to Harry Collins. Born in Glasgow, Kentucky in 1920, Collins became interested in magic when he saw a local attorney performing tricks and illusions. Collins served in World War II as a Marine, and he was wounded while on duty, which earned him a Purple Heart. Wanting to stay in the Marines and bolster troop morale, Collins joined the USO show, performing elaborate magic tricks for his fellow servicemen. After the war, Harry Collins moved to Louisville, Kentucky, where he became a salesman for the Frito-Lay snack food company. However, he would perform his magic tricks at night, where he used the name Mr. Magic. He loved both jobs so much that he would yell Frito-Lay after each of his tricks instead of the traditional abracadabra, presto, or alakazam. The Frito-Lay company was so impressed with Collins that he was made the official Frito-Lay magician, and he became known as Mr. Frito-Lay. As Mr. Frito-Lay, Collins toured the country wowing audience with his show that was focused on selling Frito-Lay snack foods. He was also extremely charitable, often performing at community fundraising events. Harry Collins died unexpectedly on May 3, 1985, and he was buried in Cave Hill Cemetery. Upon his death, a cheerful, life-size bronze statue was erected that depicts the magician in action, forever welcoming visitors to his gravesite with his mysterious smile and his handy box of illusions. Within Cave Hill Cemetery, there are thousands of headstones and monuments that are designed to honor the dead through symbolism, imagery, design, and inscriptions that are representative of each person's life and personality. Before the 19th century, gravestones primarily served only as markers, identifying a burial location but providing only limited information about the person buried beneath. The shift in the 19th century saw a desire to memorialize an individual's life more deeply and more eloquently. Cave Hill Cemetery is one such cemetery where the individuality of each of the deceased is poignantly on display. And while the management of Cave Hill Cemetery does not embrace or condone the moniker of haunted, there is no denying that beauty and life after death is hauntingly present as you walk through this historic and unique location.